So in the previous class, we were discussing about glomerulonephritis. I told you about acute glomerulonephritis. Now there are 8 more types in glomerulonephritis that we'll discuss today. I'll try to keep it as brief as possible. I would suggest you also to not go into excessive amount of depth with glomerulonephritis because it can be a very hectic and very detailed kind of topic. As I told you earlier, it will encompass a lot of problems. So a lot of problems in the sense, lot of diseases. So I would suggest that keep it as minimal as possible, and it'll be easy for you to memorize and reproduce during exam as well. Okay, so we'll try to do it in a tabular kind of way so that it is easier to uh, encompass everything. Hmm. So let us put type here, and we have clinical features here. Pathological changes here. So the first one that we look at is RPGN, rapidly progressive glomerulonephritis. Rapidly progressive, I just write GN. Okay, so it is also called RPGN. You can. It is also called as crescentic glomerulonephritis. It's also called extracapillary glomerulonephritis. Now, the reason why it is called rapidly progressive glomerulonephritis is because it's an acute condition. Okay, there will be an acute reduction in the patient's renal function, and within a few weeks to within a few months, the patient will develop ARF, acute renal failure. Okay, and it is called crescentic type of glomerulonephritis specifically because you will see crescents. So these crescents will look something like this. One second, let me show you. Uh, yeah. So this is how a crescentic glomerulonephritis or how a crescent develops. Essentially, what happens is uh, outside your glomerular capillaries, due to parietal epithelium, the basement membrane is made up of parietal cells. So parietal epithelium will start proliferating a lot, and you will have mononuclear cells. Um, they will start invading the area. Visceral epithelium starts proliferating, and you will see proliferation of cell in the form of a crescent. ठीक है, it will look like half of a moon. So जो आधा चांद बोलते it looks like that. ठीक है, and essentially this proliferation is happening because of fibrin. Inflammatory damage is occurring, fibrin is being stimulated, or fibrin is coming into that area, it is getting involved, and because of fibrin, proliferation occurs. RPGN is something that mostly occurs in adults, and its prognosis is very bad. If someone has RPGN, there is a very good chance that they will either need a liver, this thing, kidney transplant, or they might not survive it altogether. Okay, prognosis is very poor. Uh, if we talk about the clinical features, यहाँ पर there are 3 main types. Depending on different type of crescentic glomerulonephritis, you will have different features. Okay, so there are 3 types: type 1, type 2, and 3. ठीक है, there are 3 different types of RPGN. Now, अगर type 1 की बात करें तो it is mainly occurring because of, see, generally speaking, clinical features will be very similar in all the 3. Okay, you will have acute glomerulonephritis which is leading to ARF. Patients might have ARF associated with intrapulmonary hemorrhage. So there, these patients might have hemoptysis. They might start vomiting blood. ठीक है, there is something called good posture syndrome. If the patients have good posture syndrome, they might show good posture syndrome, and with that they have rapidly progressive glomerulonephritis. In that scenario, what will happen is the patient will have intrapulmonary hemorrhage. As a result, the patient will start vomiting blood. Now in type 1, the distinction between the three types is that in type 1 you will see linear deposits. Okay, type 1 glomerulonephritis में or type 1 RPGM में you will see linear deposits along the GBM. Linear deposits, so these deposits are because of proliferation of these cells. Deposits along GBM. Type 2, type 2 may you have subepithelium deposits. Deposits. Type 3 has no deposits. Second, yeah. So type 3 has no deposits. Now I'm intentionally not going deeper than this because it will unnecessarily get confusing for you. This much is enough. Okay. Now, if you see in certain textbooks, you will have morphology of all of these, and each of these will be defined in detail. What is type 1, kaisa hota, what is the pathology behind it, what is type 2, what happens in it, and all of that. Utna pura aapko zarurat nahi hai. Okay, just remember the clinical features. What happens acute glomerulonephritis mein, the patient is deteriorating rapidly. They are quickly progressing towards ARF, and if the patient has good posture syndrome, then there is a chance that they will have hemoptysis. Okay, that is more than enough for you to remember. There are three types of RPGN depending on where the deposit occurs. Right. Then we have minimal change disease. Change disease. Now, minimal change disease is also called MCD, or it is also called lipoid nephrosis, or it is called nil deposit or foot process disease. There are several names. So each of these glomerulonephritis will have several names to it, attached to it. Generally, in your exam, they'll be straightforward. They'll ask you with minimal change disease, what is RPGN, but sometimes they can ask you other names. ठीक है, minimal change जिसको lipoid nephrosis भी बोलते हैं, nil deposit भी बोलते हैं, या nil deposit disease या foot process disease भी बोलते हैं. Now, in this, the patient's clinical feature, main clinical feature will be nephrotic syndrome. So in the previous class, I had explained what is nephritic syndrome, right? Now, nephrotic syndrome is something that comes prior to nephritic syndrome. Nephritic syndrome is something more severe when compared to nephrotic syndrome. So nephritic syndrome कैसे start होता? The patient will have proteinuria. Okay. Initially, it will start off with selective proteinuria, wherein the patient is losing albumin. Slowly, it will become heavy proteinuria, heavy selective proteinuria, in the sense that a lot of protein is being lost, and sometimes it might be non-selective, in the sense both albumin and globulin is being lost. The first symptom of nephrotic syndrome is heavy proteinuria. Listen very carefully, because nephrotic syndrome is, there'll be several things that will happen with nephrotic syndrome. So first of all, it is starting with proteinuria. The patient is having mild selective proteinuria. Selective, I told you last in the previous class, selective proteinuria mane a specific type of protein is being lost. Generally albumin is the one that will be lost because वो छोटा protein है. ठीक है, pore size अगर छोटा रहा तो it is easier to lose that. Okay, once it becomes non-selective, globin is also being lost. Still, you can have low non-selective or mild non-selective proteinuria, where a mild amount of protein is being lost, anywhere between 150 mg to 3 grams. Okay, that is still fine in 24 hours. Okay, we are putting this as mild, severe, or low specifically because, or normal, because of the production of proteins from liver. We are comparing this with the production of proteins from liver. Albumin and globulin that are being produced in your liver and anywhere else in your body, their production कितना है and उसका loss कितना है, वो compare करके you are categorizing them into normal, mild and severe. Your liver generally has the potential to produce about 6 grams per day. ठीक है, if you are losing even up to 3 grams per day, it is fine. ठीक है, I mean, it is not fine, but you do not have an immediate problem. Okay, it's not like you will die now, but there is a problem. You need to treat it. There is that. Severe mate is going beyond 3, so there is a serious problem. All right, nephrotic syndrome may the patient will have heavy proteinuria, meaning they are losing more than 3 grams of protein in their urine in 24 hours. Okay, that is the first problem. As a lot of protein is being lost, your osmotic pressure in the blood starts dipping. So now, when we talk about osmotic pressure, remember it this way. Last year, when we were discussing about this pressure exerted in water, discussing about proteins and all, I'm sure I told you about the difference between hydrostatic pressure and this thing osmotic pressure. अपन जब water and electrolyte balance पढ़ रहे थे, and I think in some other chapter, I don't exactly remember, but I do remember explaining the difference between hydrostatic pressure and osmotic pressure. Just a brief rundown is that osmotic pressure is the pressure exerted by constituents that are present inside the blood, and they are essentially making sure that the fluid or plasma is staying inside the blood. ठीक है, it is staying in the blood capillary. Hydrostatic pressure is the pressure exerted by the same particles, wherein it is pushing fluid out of the blood vessel. So there are two pressures that are subjected on the blood. ठीक है, in a blood vessel. There is osmotic pressure, which is making sure fluid is inside the blood vessel, and there is hydrostatic pressure, which is trying to push fluid out of the blood vessel into tissue space. Now, for osmotic pressure to be normal, you need constituents of blood. Some of the most important constituents of blood that are maintaining osmotic pressure will be your proteins. Okay, proteins heavily contribute to osmotic pressure. Now, imagine this. If a patient is having heavy proteinuria, meaning they are losing a lot of they are losing a lot of proteins in their urine. What will happen? The patient will have hypoproteinemia. The amount of protein in their blood will dip. Okay? The amount of protein that is present inside their blood will go down. Normally, there should be some amount of protein in your blood to make sure osmotic pressure is there and for normal functioning of your body. Because of heavy proteinuria, that protein level in your blood will start going down. As a result, what will happen is, even though hydrostatic pressure is not increasing, यहाँ पर osmotic pressure कम हो जा रहा. That balance is being tipped in the favor of hydrostatic pressure. See, let us suppose there are two people. Okay, let's suppose person A and person B. Okay, again, stick diagram, make of it what you may. Both of these fellows are pushing each other. Okay, let us suppose they have a ball kind of thing in between them, and they are pushing onto the ball, and they are trying to push the ball over a line. Let us suppose they are, okay, even easier scenario, imagine tug of war. Okay, tug of war may, I'm sure you must have seen tug of war. You have a big rope, you have two groups on either side of a line, and essentially the point of the game is that one group is trying to pull the other group over the line towards their side. Okay, basic test of strength, and trying to see balance and so on and so forth. Okay, so you have pressure being applied on both the ends. Now imagine there are three people on both the ends, and they are applying equivalent amount of force, so that the rope is not budging either side. It is not moving towards the left, neither is it moving towards the right. Now let us suppose one person is removed from either one of these groups. One or two people are removed. What will happen? The previous group, let's suppose group A है and group B है. Group B में से initially there were three people here, three people here. In this I will do -2. I will remove two people. Generally what should happen is, accounting for everyone being of similar strength and similar build, what will happen? Group A will pull the person who is present in group B towards their side. Now what is happening here? The pressure exerted by group A is not increasing. It is that just that the pressure exerted by, or the pull exerted by B is decreasing significantly, because of which the net result is that the team B is losing. They are moving on to team A's side and they're losing. The same thing is happening with hydrostatic and osmotic pressure. यहाँ पर it is not that hydrostatic pressure is increasing more than normal, it is that your osmotic pressure is decreasing more than normal because of loss of protein. And as this protein is being lost, the patient has hypoproteinemia, and as hypoproteinemia occurs, blood, or specifically plasma, will start moving out of your blood vessels into tissue space. Now what happens if plasma starts accumulating in your body? There is a very specific condition that occurs, right? We studied it in the first chapter. If fluid moves out of your blood vessel into your tissue space, what will that condition be called? Think. You studied this in the first chapter. I think you wrote an exam on this. अच्छा, अगर एक पर्सन को हाइपरटेंशन हुआ तो दे विल हैव समथिंग इन देयर फुट. देयर फीट विल स्वेल समटाइम्स, नॉट ऑलवेज. देयर फीट विल स्वेल. व्हाट इज दैट स्वेलिंग कॉल्ड? अब इससे ज्यादा तो आपको मैं हिंट नहीं दे सकता. अरे बाप रे. देखो बाबा, अगर एक ब्लड वेसल है, and suppose this is the blood vessel, and there is blood flowing in that blood vessel which contains plasma and serum, and you have a bunch of cells here. Let us suppose there is a tissue here and there are a number of cells present here. यहाँ पर क्या हो रहा, because osmotic pressure is being lost, hydrostatic pressure is relatively increasing, and net amount of fluid that should, stay in balance, it is moving out. ठीक है, more amount of fluid is being moved out rather than being captured inside the blood vessel. And what will happen is fluid will start accumulating in that tissue space, leading to edema. That condition is called edema. So the person will have generalized edema and nephrotic syndrome. So those are the three classic signs of edema, three classic signs of nephrotic syndrome. First, it will start with heavy proteinuria. As heavy proteinuria occurs, hypoproteinemia occurs, protein level in your blood decreases. As protein level in your blood decreases, osmotic pressure in your blood decreases. The osmotic pressure exerted by proteins, which are non-existent at this point, both kam ho gaye, that pressure sharply decreases, because of which plasma will start moving out of your blood vessels, and ultimately what will happen is the patient will have generalized edema, their body weight will go up and they will swell up. Okay? That is nephrotic syndrome. So in minimal change disease, you will see nephrotic syndrome in the patient. ये समझ में आया nephrotic syndrome क्या है, या do you want me to repeat it again, or any specific aspect that you didn't understand?
समझ में आया था.
पक्का पूरों को आया? Okay, ठीक है. Now, moving on, what will happen because of minimal change diseases? Here, there is fatty change. Essentially, you will see a lot of lipid molecules move out of your glomeruli into the tubules. Okay, tubules will undergo fatty change. More and more amount of lipid molecules will start moving out of your blood vessels and will start moving out of your tissue space into the tubules. And what will happen is you will see lipid vacuolation in tubules. Vacuoles full of lipids will be seen inside the tubule. Some of these vacuoles will start depositing in the tubules, but most of them will just form vacuoles, and you will start seeing lipid in the person's urine. So अगर आप उनके urine collect करें, good amount of urine, let's suppose 500 ml or something, you will start seeing a proper layer of fat on top of their urine. ठीक है, that is a good sign that the person has minimal change disease. राइट. आज सच ग्लोमेरुलाई में उतने कुछ बड़े चेंजेस नहीं होते, स्पेसिफिक डैमेज हो रहा है या ऐसा. इवेंचुअली इट विल हैपन, बट इनिशियली इट विल नॉट बी दैट. ठीक है, इवेंचुअली इट विल हैपन. The clinical features that the patient will show is massive, highly selective proteinuria. The patient generally has very, very selective kind of proteinuria. Albumin, more amount of albumin is lost than globulin. In certain cases, you will have non-selective as well, but more often than not, you will have selective, very high selective proteinuria. And it is more frequent in children less than 16 years of age. Peak incidence is about 6 to 8 years of age. Prognosis is very good, even though remissions might occur, relapses might occur. Prognosis is okay, it is not so bad with respect to minimal change disease. So, what you see is normal glomeruli, lipid vacuolation. Okay, those are the pathological changes that you see in case of minimal change disease. Then we have the next one, membranous glomerulonephritis. ठीक है। membranous glomerulonephritis is also called epimembranous glomerulonephropathy. ठीक है, membranous glomerulonephritis or epimembranous nephropathy. Now there is widespread thickening of glomerular capillary wall in this, and membranous glomerulonephritis is the most common cause of nephrotic syndrome in adults. In most of the cases of nephrotic syndrome, the patient generally develops because of membranous glomerulonephritis. ठीक है, यहाँ पर भी नेफ्रोटिक सिंड्रोम है. Now, typically what will happen is there will be diffuse thickening of the capillary wall, and you will start seeing subepithelial deposits. You will start seeing it starts off as a immune complex disease. So immune complexes are being formed. They will come to the glomeruli. They'll damage the glomeruli, and see, 85% of the cases it is idiopathic, in the sense that you cannot exactly tell what is happening, how it is happening. Idiopathic का मतलब यह है you cannot determine the cause of the disease. 15% of the cases में the patient has an underlying autoimmune condition. ठीक है, autoimmune या anything that triggers immunity. It might be SLE, it might be hepatitis, it might be malaria, syphilis, or any other malignancy. Sometimes it can occur due to drugs as well, but in 15% of the cases there is some underlying condition. In 85% of the cases it is idiopathic, and even when it is idiopathic, you know that cause nahi malum hai, but what we do know is that it is an immune complex disease. There will be immune complexes being formed. Those immune complexes are damaging your GBM and they are damaging your glomeruli. Okay, now the most prominent change that you see, as I told you, is diffuse thickening of glomerular capillary walls. Okay. Uh, Now, specific in clinical features with this one will be that the patient has insidious onset. Okay, generally nephrotic syndrome will develop and it will be very insidious. Insidious in the sense it will suddenly appear without any proper warning altogether. Okay, it will creep up on you, and especially it will occur in adults. Nephrotic syndrome, out of nowhere you'll start seeing symptoms. The patient will have non-selective proteinuria in this. The patient might have microscopic hematuria. Some patients will develop hypertension as well. Okay, there will be irreversible changes in most patients, irreversible damage occurring in glomeruli of most patients. And if the disease progresses, membranous glomerulonephritis, as it progresses, it will lead to ESRD, end stage renal disease. The patient might have azotemia. Okay, within 2 to 20 years, almost in 50% of the cases, the patient will start having azotemia, wherein urea will start accumulating in their blood. Okay, nitrogen products and urea will start accumulating in the blood. Then comes membrane proliferative glomerulonephritis. Membrano proliferative nephritis. ठीक है, इसको मीसैंजियो कैपिलरी ग्लोमेरुलोनेफ्राइटिस भी बोलते हैं या एमपीजीएन भी बोलते हैं. ठीक है, एमसीडी, मिनिमल चेंज डिजीज इज कॉल्ड एमसीडी. membranous glomerulonephritis is called MGN. Membranoproliferative glomerulonephritis is called MPGN. Okay, जनरली मेम्ब्रेनस को उतना अब्रीविएट नहीं करते, डायरेक्टली मेम्ब्रेनस ग्लोमेरुलोनेफ्राइटिस ही बोलते हैं, इसको एमपीजीएन बोलते हैं, मेम्ब्रेनोप्रोलिफरेटिव. इट इज कैरेक्टराइज्ड बाय टू मेन चेंजेस. There will be increased mesangial cellularity. So mesangium will have proliferation, mesangial cells. You will also see increased tuft lobulation. In the tuft space, you will see a lot of cells proliferating, and you will see irregular thickening of the capillary wall. So two specific changes that will occur in this: increased mesangial cellularity and tuft lobulation. Okay, and just write it as plus. Irregular capillary wall thickening. Now, this is typically associated with nephritic syndrome rather than nephrotic syndrome. The patient will show signs of nephritic syndrome. Now, nephrotic syndrome अगर बहुत ज़्यादा हो गया, that is when nephritic syndrome will develop. ठीक है? The patient is having hypoproteinemia, they're losing a lot of protein, they're having generalized edema, all of that happens, right? Ultimately, what will happen is how it becomes nephritic syndrome is uh, immune complexes will come into picture. There will be damage to your kidney. And as kidney is being damaged, what will happen is glomeruli will get damaged specifically. As glomeruli gets damaged, it will come to a point where normal function of kidney will be lost, in the sense that it will not be able to excrete unnecessary material out of your body. The waste material that is being produced in your body, that will not be excreted properly out of your glomeruli because they are not working properly. As they are not working properly, you'll start seeing azotemia, oliguria, urine production will decrease, azotemia occurs. And as now यहाँ पर प्रॉब्लम, प्रोटीन जो एक्सक्रीट हो रहे थे आपके ग्लोमेरुलाई में से, वो कम हो जाता, ठीक है. बट यू विल सी हेमाटूरिया, आरबीसीज आर बीइंग लॉस्ट, you will see RBC casts, you will see hypertension occurring in the patient because your this thing, kidneys are not working properly, urine is not being formed properly, azotemia is occurring. All of this will contribute to increased volume of your blood, and it will also cause increased amount of waste product in your blood. That will contribute to higher blood pressure. Okay? That is nephritic syndrome. Generally, in membranoproliferative glomerulonephritis, you will see three different types, or three different, how should I put it, forms of the disease. Okay, type 1 classic form, yeah, type 2 dense deposit disease, type 3 is very rare. Okay, type 1 may you will see sebaceous endothelial deposits. So this also has three types: type 1, type 2, and type 3. Type 1 may the patient will show subendothelial deposits. Okay, this is the classic form. Most of the cases, more than 70% of the cases, the patient will have immune complex disease and they will develop type 1 uh, membranoproliferative glomerulonephritis. Generally, it is associated with either SLE or cryoglobulinemia, Sjogren's disease, some immunocomplex disease. Okay, it might have, the patient might have some chronic infection, the patient might have some malignancy, something or the other will be wrong with the patient, and then they'll develop this classic form. Then in almost 29% of the cases, almost 30% of the cases, they will have type 2, wherein dense deposit disease. इसमें there is dense intramembranous deposits. Okay, type 2 MPGN में there are dense intramembranous deposits in the patient's GBM. Capillary wall thickens specifically because of deposition in your GBM. It is also a autoimmune disease, but यहाँ पर थोड़ा अलग है. ठीक है, it is associated with lipodystrophy. The patient will have symmetrical loss of subcutaneous upper body fat. The patient might have abnormal fat distribution altogether, hence the lipodystrophy. IgG and autoantibodies called C3 nephritic factors are seen in the patient's blood. Okay? Essentially, that is the change. Here, dense intramembranous deposits occur. That is the most important change. Type 2 में. Type 3 may you will see subendothelial, very rare. Type 3. You will see features of type 1 MPGN along with membranous nephropathy in type 3. Okay? It is also associated with some systemic disease and drugs. Generally, what happens is the patient will have subendothelial and subepithelial type of deposits in type 3. Very, very rare. Okay? Now, clinically, this occurs, MPGN mostly occurs in patients who are about 15 to 20 years of age. Most common age for diagnosis is 15 to 20. 50% of the cases, the patient has nephrotic syndrome. In 30% of the cases, the patient will develop asymptomatic proteinuria. In 20% of the patients, that nephrotic syndrome develops into nephritic syndrome. And as such, if MPGN is allowed to stay, if it starts progressing, it will develop into nephritic syndrome. Hematuria is common, hypertension is common, hypocomplementuria is common. So there are something called complement proteins that play a very important part and important role in your immunity. Those complement proteins will start to be lost in the urine, hence hypocomplementemia. Most patients will develop renal failure. Okay? They will progress to renal failure. Prognosis is generally better for type 1, but as it goes into type 2 and type 3, prognosis will become bleak. Okay. Now we have 3 4 more types of glomerular nephropathy. um, we'll discuss that. These are all primary types. Okay, secondary types we'll discuss the next 4 types of primary, that is that will come up: focal and focus segmental and all of that, along with secondary glomerular nephritis in the next class. Okay.